Hello. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on. I'd also like to acknowledge the Darawal people they look after the Burrardong Island as their traditional land. And especially, I'd like to acknowledge the co-authors of this paper. So that would be Peter Button, Nicholas Carlisle, Kevin Mills, Chris Lloyd. I do have photos of each of them. Where's my clicker? There it is. All right, this is Uncle Pete Button. He's just instrumental to this project, a glorious person. He is Field Officer with National Parks and Wildlife Service, and this is why we have such a great relationship with the Darawal people. He works out on the island, puts his heart and soul into it. He got his boat licence for this project, couldn't drive a boat beforehand, he sure can now. We go and land where the waves are. He's also plays the didgeridoo and is involved in the cultural art openings that we've been having. Instrumental to this project. Wish he was here. The Big Island, Burrardong, is the traditional name. A lot of the Kikuyu don't even know that name, but some of the elders do kind of go, yeah, I think my dad used to call it Burrardong. There's a lot of dreaming story connections. It's very important to the Kikuyu people. It's a female site. It's really close to Wollongong. It's only 500 metres off the mainland. It's only accessible by boat. There's lots of sharks in between. They're only juvenile, they say. 3.5 metres will steal the flipper off you, but still, I don't want to swim with the sharks. There's no electricity, there's no water, but it is home for the wildlife. You feel like you've walked into a David Attenborough documentary. The birds are just gorgeous, particularly over the summer months when they're nesting. So yeah, it's not very accessible. We land on a little beach. The rest of it's pretty wavy, pretty tricky to land. It's a nature reserve, so it is there for the fauna, it's not there for people to land on. The reason being is these beautiful little seabirds, we have little penguins, shearwaters, we've just got the petrels back after 50 years. They burrow underneath the ground, they dig holes underneath. And with the shearwater, it lays 1 egg per year. So if you tread on that burrow and squash that shearwater's egg, it's got no family for the rest of the year. And what we do is we have a little bit of a problem. We have weeds growing on the island. The island was farmed a long time ago, it's had fires, it's had mining, it's basically been desecrated, and it's now covered in coastal morning glory, also known as marla minute because it grows so quickly, and Kikuyu grass. The picture there, well, kind of comes up to your thigh, they're kind of rigging it a bit there, they're bending down. But this grass and Kikuyu grows over the top of the seabird habitat, so we end up getting the birds trapped in the burrows, and the whole family will get trapped. If the bird at the front gets trapped, the chicken, the parent bird down in the bottom will also get trapped. They get the wings and their legs get wrapped around by the Kikuyu grass, and it's really not a nice sight. The shearwater on your right-hand side, I actually had to rescue that one. It was wound up, it was in the middle of the summer, and the shearwaters aren't out in the sun in the middle of the summer on the island. They're down underneath in their burrows or out collecting food. So we've had success with the program. What you see on your left-hand side is the Kikuyu grass, lush and green and beautiful. We bring in the helicopters and spray it, so we have a little bit of help from a big bird. And we spray it with glyphosate, treat it, and then we let it mulch for a year. And that's what you can see on the right-hand side. All those holes are shearwater burrows. They can now get into their burrows. Now, you know, like the cooking shows, voila, here's what I prepared for you before. Well, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is site 2, which we have achieved. This is over 2-3 years worth of planting now. We've got Lamandra species growing, it's a mat rush. The little penguins can nest in between this. It's the ideal habitat. And we've got these ideas from Montague Island and Muttonbird Island as what sort of habitat we're looking for. So this is what we'd like to achieve across the island. You can see the blue area, that was area 2 where I showed you the picture. Area 1, we learnt a lot in that site. We had Biram working with us. We were a bit too tender and gentle about walking on potential burrows. We didn't do enough spot spraying. So we've been learning as we go. And then we had a big hit out with area 3, 5 and 6. We sprayed them all at the same time, we planted them, and somehow we've managed to pull it off. Stand by for the next 2 years, we'll see how well it grows. But our secret has been having Biram Neri, the environmental green team, working with us, as well as a lot of volunteers. So the considerations to take on such a crazy project, we need to know about the cultural importance. We all knew it's connected to the five islands. It's 5 Islands Nature Reserve is what I look after. And there's a story connected to Mount Gira about the 6 sisters and 5 of them being really naughty. It's also a nature reserve, so you can't just go and do anything there. You have to go through a lot of environmental protocols. Government don't really like talking time frames longer than 1 year, really. Restoring an island, it's 20, 30 years plus the next generation. The boats are hard to get there, the weather's crazy, and you've got to look at when the seabirds are breeding as to when you can conduct your operations. We need a lot of staff, a lot of contractors and really keen, enthusiastic volunteers. Of course, you need money to do a project like this. So the traditional knowledge, really lucky. I told you about Uncle Peter Button at the beginning. Well, he introduced me to Uncle Richard Archibald, and through the Illawarra local Aboriginal Land Council, they made the Birramura team. And we had a welcome to country. So Uncle Richard, when I was there, Pete was like, you know, Ro, pick him up in the car and have a yarn. So we did. I picked him up in the car and chatted away. He's like, you've got to meet the Kumanitchi ladies, Ro. You know, it's a female site, it's really important. So word of mouth, taking time and talking to people, I got to know all the locals. And that's resulted in a beautiful relationship where we had an elders boat tour. We consulted with the local Darawal people right at the start before the project got too far in. So they were part of the process and part of the decision making. So we had a tour where we took them out on a boat, went around the island and chatted about how should we manage this island, what's the best approach to take. You can see Uncle Richard's smile on his face. They loved being involved. And one lesson I learned is you do need to document things. So we did take minutes from that day, and I still do go back to those minutes. Birramura, particularly the elders were like, you know, we want jobs for our younger people. We want employment. And Birramura has created employment. Admittedly, it's only casual employment because there's not a lot of work on the island, but it's moved to other projects on Mount Kira and other work with National Parks and Council. These guys here, they've got their camp cert certificates now. Well, TJ's just about got it, the one holding the penguin. And it's been a really good process for them to get into the workforce and move on. Another one of the ladies, Letitia's now moved to permanent work elsewhere. She was just gorgeous on the island, really helpful, really knowledgeable with the plants. Now I was talking about the Kumanitchi ladies, so Auntie Lorraine Brown and Auntie Narelle Thomas. They are wonderful artists, so we wanted to make a bit of connection with the people from Wollongong. So we got them to paint the Five Island Dreaming story and we put that on a bumper sticker for people. And we had an art opening where we got the local government people all along to actually learn about the project and about the connections and the Kumanitchi artists. And their artwork, it's just exquisite. This is one that they painted. So at the end of the financial year, I was like, can we buy this one off you? Because they need money, they need support. We need to work out ways that we can pay for knowledge, not just expect people to turn up and share their knowledge. This was outside of our project, but the ladies also did a storybook with the kids at Kumanitchi. We don't take kids out to the island because of the problems with pathogens with the seagulls, but we still want the next generation to know and be involved when they hit that 18-year mark. Now the project's bigger than Ben Hur really. We have a lot of scientific expertise involved. So this is the co-author Nicholas in the bottom left corner. He's a Seabird researcher, has magnificent information and he shares it with the Birram young people. They love having him out there. Kevin Mills, he's a local ecologist, Dr. Kevin Mills that is. He does the vegetation monitoring for us, so we're heading in the right direction. And it's like, Ro, we've got a new weed, we've got to get on top of that one. We've had some ex-CSIRO scientists come out and they look at the territorial birds, so we're looking at the ecology just not for the seabirds but for other species as well. And of course the media love it, so we get TV out there, we've had ABC radio out there, people are interested. Particularly when you fly a big helicopter in to help you with a project. You know, we're only talking $1,900 an hour, so it does cost quite big bickies getting the helicopter to help you. You couldn't do it without it. Like I've had my managers out there hand weeding just to prove the point. It's a bit of fun, but at least I got them out there. But using a helicopter, there are quite strict environmental restrictions. We are limited by the wind, by the rain, and by, you know, where we set up our operations, and people need to be highly trained. So we spray the site, we let it mulch down for a year, and then we come back and plant. And believe it or not, there's no water there, so I fly water out there. That cost me $5,000. But this is the cone spray, the one on your top side. That can direct it directly to where we want it, whereas the other one on the bottom, that's a boom spray, and that covers a larger area. You can see spraying on the bottom, or on the top was before a spray, down the bottom is after a spray. You see the cone at the bottom of the helicopter. We've also been working in with the universities. I love the picture on the top left-hand side. That's Dr. Sarah Hamilton. And they're setting the drone off, and it's the student Pollyanna doing her honours this year, and they're actually counting the lomandras that we've planted so we can work out the success of our planting, because it's, I think, over 22,000 plants that we've put in there now, which has been quite a huge effort over the last 4 years. We have 150 Friends of Five Island volunteers that don't all get out there. We run a ballot system because we don't want everyone trudging on the islands. But the Friends get ownership of the project, they meet the Birram staff and they share knowledge. There's been over 900 hours per year where they're involved, and it has all different life stages. We have children who hear about it from their parents, then we have the students from university that come out, we have workers, and we have retirees, and the retirees are really dedicated to the project. And they'll travel from overseas, from Sydney, and we have a lot of locals too. So the median distance is about 15 kilometres. Marine Rescue have been involved in helping us get out there. We have a big mothership that we go out on, and then we have a little tender so we can land. The mothership can't land on the island. And you can see Pete Button here pulling in the red boat. That's where the group from Mentawai Wildflower Garden have been growing the plants. Birram actually collect the seeds, which we then give to Menai, which then grow the seeds, which makes it a little bit more of an economical project. But Birram are also now looking at making up their own nursery so they can grow the seeds and actually grow the plants for other projects up and down the Illawarra. We also use Intrepid Land Care. It's a young group of volunteers from 20 to 30 who are full of energy. Took them out for a weekend to do planting, and they got 1,800 seedlings in on one weekend, which was pretty good going. They did whinge about being a bit sore the next day. Which is something I have to remember with the visitors. It's an experience for them. We have a visitor book out there, and it's lovely because they'll write their passionate views about the project and what they've experienced and how much they love being involved. It's not sort of a place that people can normally get to. So one of the really important parts of the whole project, and a take-home message, is that it's a community solution. It's not an individual, it's not just national parks. There's a lot of people that have been involved in doing the restoration on Big Island. We've got a long way to go. We're only halfway through, and we are planning to do the other half, but it will be in little stages. The whole reason why we got in this situation to start with is there were big erosion problems on the island. And someone back in the 60s thought, woohoo, let's introduce Kikuyu Grass, and that's going to fix the problem. Well, what is it, 20 years on, 30 years on, we're now trying to fix the problem of Kikuyu Grass and to remove that one from there. So I do need to acknowledge the granting bodies. We've had the Foundation for National Parks, Port Kembla Community Investment Fund gave us $100,000, likewise Environmental Trust Grant gave us $100,000. That's why we took on such a big area. I would normally do smaller areas because project maintenance is one of the big issues, and we're doing that through the community involvement with Birram and the volunteers. Thank you.
I'm interested in the drone monitoring. Use that to monitor the land.
Yeah, the first year we had Noel Rodas doing his honours, and we're trying to get him to map the coastal morning glory and Kikuyu grass. It's not quite so easy because the Comolina, which is a native that did come up, which we were dancing for joy about, has the same spectral analysis, which is the colour reflection, as the coastal morning glory. So we kind of have a weed, non-weed map, but have to be careful where we know the Comolinas come back up. Excuse me. Pollyanna, on the other hand, yeah, we've got her this year to actually count the lamandras that are on the island so we can see how successful our project is going. And similar to another speech that was done earlier on, we have the problem where if the lamandra's clustered, it comes up as a reading of 1 lamandra when it could potentially be 5. So she's still working on that. It's due to hand it in the next 2 weeks, so wishing her good luck at the moment.
Do you have any, I guess we haven't had much rain, or I don't know if you've had much rain.
Oh, yeah, keep going, sorry, before I...
Have you had any problems with erosion when you're going to be planting? Because you've killed off all the vegetation and then you put individual plants on there, and I guess there's a raised possibility of more erosion.
There is, and what's lovely with this project is we have a working group and lots of different specialists. Now, I'm not a specialist with my birds and plants, but I am with erosion. That's what I studied my PhD on. And the technique we've used is spray, mulch, and then plant. And the mulch is beautiful. It doesn't really mulch down after a year. We've still got the cover, so that's stopping us from having an erosion problem. And then after a year or two, when the plants grow up, that's when the mulch is finally going. Hunky-dory days, we've got no problem with erosion. That being said, on the northern slope, I am quite concerned how we manage that at the moment. The mile a minute keeps growing back so quick, we're not winning. But in a way, I'm glad for that because it's stopping the erosion. So that's going to have to be a really, doing small areas at a time, because you take one step forward and you fall down 3 steps because it's so steep there. So erosion, it is an issue, and we're monitoring it very carefully. We have to do a review of environmental factors before we start anything in a nature reserve. They're quite strict on what we can and can't do.